Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into an incredible story of how a totally ordinary chore, we're talking finding a few lost donkeys, somehow becomes the origin story for a nation's very first king. It's a wild tale about how destiny can find you when you are absolutely least expecting it.
All right, so how does this even happen? How do you go from looking for livestock to being offered a crown? Well, the guy at the center of all this is a young man named Saul. He gets a simple job from his father, but this journey he's on, it's about to take a turn that will change not just his life, but the entire history of his people.
So let's set the scene. Our story doesn't kick off with a huge battle or some grand prophecy. Nope, it starts with a pretty down-to-earth problem. Saul's father, a respected guy named Kish, has lost his donkeys.
And this brings us to Saul. The first thing you learn about him is that he's a real standout, physically speaking. He's described as handsome and, get this, a full head taller than anybody else. But here's the twist. Despite looking like a hero, he's a total underdog. He comes from the tribe of Benjamin, which was the smallest, least powerful tribe in all of Israel. And his big mission, just go find the donkeys.
So, how's that search going?
Well, it's a disaster. For days, Saul and his servant are just trekking all over the place, through the hills of Ephraim, through Shalisha, into Shalim, and nothing. The donkeys are just gone. They've hit a total dead end.
At this point, Saul's had enough. He's exhausted, and he's being practical. He's thinking, we've been gone so long, my dad has probably stopped worrying about the donkeys and started worrying about us. He's ready to call it quits and just head home empty-handed. And right here, this is where everything changes. Just as Saul's about to turn around, a totally random comment from his servant pivots their whole journey in a new direction. And let me tell you, it's a collision course with destiny. So, since they've clearly failed on their own, the servant pipes up with an idea. He says, "Hey, I heard there's a man of God in this town, a seer. They say his words always come true. Maybe he can tell us where to go."
Saul's first reaction is, great idea, but we have nothing to give him. We're totally broke. But the servant, he's one step ahead. He says he has a quarter shekel of silver. It's almost nothing, just a tiny coin, but it's enough for a gift. And that tiny coin is about to change everything. Now, here's a quick vocabulary lesson from the text. Back in those days, the person we'd now call a prophet was called a seer. And a seer was basically the person you went to for divine guidance on, well, just about anything, from big military plans to, you guessed it, finding lost animals. And you will not believe their timing. It is absolutely perfect. They get to the town and they find out that the seer, a man named Samuel, is not only there, but he's about to lead a huge public feast. They have stumbled right into the middle of a major event. But here's the thing Saul doesn't know. He has no idea that his arrival isn't some lucky coincidence. Not at all. See, while he's been wandering around the hills looking for donkeys, a much, much bigger plan has been unfolding. Okay, so now this story kind of pulls back the curtain and lets us in on a secret. It turns out this whole encounter wasn't random in the slightest. There's a whole divine backstory happening just off screen. God had literally given Samuel a heads up. He told him, tomorrow, a man from the tribe of Benjamin is coming your way. He's the one. You're going to anoint him as the first ruler, the first king of Israel. So Samuel isn't just some local seer. He's a kingmaker, and he's been waiting. This whole setup is just incredible. You have Saul walking up to Samuel with one thing on his mind. Where are my dad's donkeys? Meanwhile, Samuel is looking at Saul and thinking, there he is, the future king of Israel. I mean, they are on two completely different planets. So Samuel just takes complete charge. The first thing he says is, I'm the seer you're looking for. And then, so brilliantly, he immediately gets Saul's little problem out of the way. He tells him, oh, and by the way, don't even worry about the donkeys. They've been found. He just clears the board so he can drop the real news. And then he drops the bombshell. He looks at this guy who 5 minutes ago was just worried about his dad being upset and says that he is the person the entire nation has been waiting for. You can just imagine Saul standing there thinking, wait, what? Me? Of course, Saul tries to argue. He's like, but I'm from the smallest tribe. My family is nobody. But Samuel just brushes it all aside. Instead, he treats Saul like absolute royalty.
He puts him in the seat of honor at this feast with 30 other people and gives him a special piece of meat that was already set aside just for him. His world has just been turned upside down.
So the next morning, after the feast and a long private talk, Samuel gets ready to do the one secret, sacred thing that will make this all official. And privacy is everything here. Samuel tells Saul's servant to go on ahead so that it's just him and Saul alone at the edge of town. This is a moment that's just between the prophet, the future king, and God. No one else needs to see it. And this is it, the moment of transformation. Samuel takes a flask of olive oil, this powerful symbol of being chosen for a divine task, and he pours it over Saul's head. He seals it with a kiss and says the words that change everything, confirming Saul's new, unbelievable identity as the ruler chosen by God. Now, Samuel was smart. He knows this is a lot to process. So, to prove to a completely bewildered Saul that this is all real, he gives him a prophetic roadmap, a series of very specific things that are going to happen to him that very day.
And these signs, they build on each other. First, he'll get confirmation about the donkeys, finally closing that loop. Second, he'll be given bread, a symbol of provision for his new role. And third, the most powerful sign of all, he's going to run into a group of prophets and will actually be overcome by the Spirit of God. These signs are designed to erase every last bit of doubt.
And this is the most important part to get. This isn't just about a new job title. Samuel is promising Saul a complete internal change. He tells him, you will literally be changed into a different person because you're not doing this alone. As he says, God is with you.
So Saul starts his day as just a son looking for some lost animals, and he ends it as an anointed king in waiting. It's an absolutely mind-blowing story that leaves us with this huge question about fate itself. When destiny calls, when this enormous, unexpected responsibility lands on your shoulders, is that a burden or is it a gift?